वासुदेवं नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय नारायणं नमस्कृत्यं नरं चैव नरोत्तमं उदीरये नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Now today we start new chapter of Srimad Bhagwatam, Canto 11, Chapter 23, the Song of the Avanti Brahmana, from Shloka number 1 to 11. Sri Badrayani Uvacha Sa evam अंशसीत उद्धवेन भागवत मुखेन दाशार्य मुख्य सभाजन भृत्यवचः मुकुंद मुकुंद तम अभाव अबभाषे श्रवणीय वीर्य. श्री भगवान उवाच बारस्पत्य स न अस्ति अत्र साधु वै दुर्जन इरिते दुरक्ते भिन्न भिन्नम आत्मानं यः समाधातुम् ईश्वरः. न तथा तप्यते विद्धः पुमान् बाणे तु मर्मगै यथा तुदन्ति मर्मस्था हि असतां परुष ईशवः कथयन्ति मत् पुण्यम् इतिहासम् इह उद्धव तमहं वर्णयिष्यामि निबोधसु समाहितः. केनचित् भिक्षुणा गीतं परिभूतेन दुर्जने स्मरता धृतियुक्तेन विपाकं निज कर्मणा भवन्तेषु द्विजः कश्चित् आसीत् आद्यतमः श्रिया वार्ता वृत्ति कदर्यः तु कामी लुब्ध अतिकोपनः. ज्ञातयः अतिथय तस्य वाक्मात्रेण अपि न अर्चिताः शून्य अवसत आत्मा अपि काले कामे अनर्चित दुश्शीलस्य कर्दयस्य द्रुह्यन्ते पुत्र बान्धवाः धाराद्वितरा वृत्त्या विषण्णा न आचरन् प्रियम्. तस्य एवं यक्षवित्तस्य चित्तस्य उभयलोकतः धर्मकाम विहीनस्य चक्रुदो पंचभागिना तत् अवध्यान विश्रस्त पुण्यस्कंदस्य बुरिद अर्थपि अगच्छत् निधनं बहु आयास परिश्रमः. जिज्ञातयः जगृह किंचित किंचित तस्य वह उद्धव दैवत कालतः किंचित ब्रह्मबंधो नृप अर्थिवाद स एवं द्रविणे नष्टे धर्म काम विवर्जित उपेक्षित च स्वजने चिंताम् आपदुरतयाम्. Translation and purport by the Srila Prabhupada. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shukdev Goswami said, Lord Mukunda, the chief of the Darshar Raj, having thus been respectfully requested by the best of his devotees, Sri Uddhava first acknowledged the fitness of his servant's statements. Then the Lord, whose glorious exploits are most worthy of being heard, began to reply to him. Lord Sri Krishna said, O disciple of Brihaspati, there is virtually no saintly man in this world capable of resettling his own mind after it has been disturbed by the insulting words of uncivilized men. Sharp arrows which pierce one's chest and reach the heart do not cause as much suffering as the arrows of harsh, insulting words that become lodged within the heart when spoken by uncivilized men. My dear Uddhava, in this regard, a most pious story is told, and I shall now describe it to you. Please listen with careful attention. Once a certain sannyasi was insulted in many ways by impious impious man. However, with determination, he remembered that he was suffering the fruit of his own previous karma. I will narrate to you his story and that which he spoke. In the country of Avanti, there once lived a certain Brahmana who was very rich and gifted with all opulences and who was engaged in the occupation of commerce. But he was a miserly person, lusty, greedy, and very prone to anger. In his home, devoid of religiosity and lawful sense gratification, the family members and guests were never properly respected, even with words. He would not even allow sufficient accommodation for his own body at the suitable time, since he was so hard-hearted and miserly. His son in-laws, wife, daughters, and servants began to feel inimical toward him. Becoming disgusted, they would never treat him with affection. In this way, the presiding deities of the five family sacrifices became angry at the Brahmana, who being niggardly guarded his wealth like a yaksha, who had no good destiny either in this world or the next, and who was totally deprived of religiosity and sense enjoyments. O magnanimous Uddhava, by his neglect of this demigod, he depleted his stock of piety and all his wealth. The accumulation of his repeated exhaustive endeavors was totally lost. Some of the wealth of this so-called Brahmana was taken away by his relative, my dear Uddhava, some of thieves, some of the whims of providence, some by the effects of time, some by ordinary men, and some by government authorities. Finally, when his property was completely lost, he who never engaged in religiosity or sense enjoyment became ignored by his family members. Thus, he began to feel unbearable anxiety. Purport with Srila Prabhupada, Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki jai. In the modern age, there is widespread propaganda ridiculing the path of spiritual realization, and the even saintly devotees are disturbed to see the progress of human society being obstructed. Still, a devotee of the Lord must tolerate any personal insult, though he cannot tolerate offense against the Lord himself or the Lord's pure devotee. The Lord will now relate to Uddhava a historical account which teaches how to tolerate the insults of others. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur comments as follows. Often those who give up the materialistic path and devote themselves to renunciation are attacked by impious person. This analysis, however, is superficial since the punishment is actually the cumulative result of one's past karma. Some renunciants show lack of tolerance when presented with the remnants of their previous sins and thus are forced to enter again onto the path of impious life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu therefore instructs that one should become as tolerant as a tree. If a neophyte on the path of devotional service to the Lord's pure devotee is attacked by envious person, he must accept it as a consequence of his previous spiritual activities. One should be intelligent and avoid future unhappiness by rejecting the ethic of an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. If one refuses to enter enmity with envious men, they will automatically leave him alone. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, the Avanti country is the district of Malwa. This Brahmana was extremely wealthy, doing business in agriculture, banking, and so on. Being a miser, he suffered agony when his hard-earned wealth was lost, as will described by the Lord himself. The Brahmana stock of piety became like a withered, no longer gives fruits or flowers. Srila Jiva Goswami comments that the Brahmana had a trace of piety directed at the Supreme Lord with hopes of liberation. That pure portion of the branch of his piety remained unwithered, eventually giving the fruit of knowledge. It appears that if the so-called Brahmana was determined not to spend his wife and other relatives managed to squeeze out a portion. According to Srila Sridhar Swami, providence here refers to fires in the home and other types of occasional misfortune. Effects of time here refers to the destruction of agricultural crops through seasonal irregularities and other such occurrences. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur points out that one should not merely claim oneself to be a Brahmana, but should actually understand one's original identity as a servant of the Lord. One declaring himself to be a Brahmana, but maintaining a materialistic mentality is not a real Brahmana, but rather a Brahmana, a Brahmabandhu, or so-called Brahmana, the humble devotees of Lord Vishnu. Following the indication of the Vedic scriptures, refer to themselves as unfortunate and unable to understand the kingdom of God. They do not proudly proclaim themselves to be Brahmanas. Those who are wise, however, know that such humble devotees are actually Brahmanas whose hearts are cleansed by the pure mode of goodness. Thus end the purpose. Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmilitam Ena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namah Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Sthapitam Ena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vande Am Sri Guroho Sri Yuttapada Kamalam Sri Gurun Vaishnavancha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathānvitam tam sajivam sadvaitam savadutam parijala sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhanvitancha Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarubhecha Sindhube Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Krishna Dandavat Pranam. In new chapter of Srimad Bhagwatam, Canto 11, 23, the song of the Avanti Brahmana. In this chapter, here Krishna told to Uddhava about a story about the mendicant sannyasis from the Avanti country, and again he explained how one should tolerate the disturbances and the offenses created by a evil person. These 2 points here they describing, and shloka start with the Badrayani Vacha. Mean Shukdev Goswami told. They told to whom? To Parikshit Maharaj that Lord Mukunda, the chief of the Dashara, having thus been respectfully requested by the best of devotees, Sri Uddhava. Uddhava asking to Lord Krishna two questions in last chapter we heard. On that questions, acknowledging the fitness of his servant's statement, and Lord tried to give the answer in these shlokas. We try to understand step by step. Prabhuji will tell you in detail. Hare Krishna Dandavat Pranam. Mancha kalpataruve cha कृपा सिंधु एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः. हरे कृष्ण दंडवत प्रणाम.
When others neglect or hurt or envy us, it is the mind which keeps adding fuel to the fire of sorrows in which we are situated by justifying our position, decrying the bad qualities of others. When we are situated in such a position, we'll simply be lingering on those unpleasant moments again and again, waste our precious time, and also stop performing whatever little service we were doing. The Avanti Brahman is actually an exemplification of this particular fact. And that is why Krishna is narrating this particular story, which we'll find that we all relate to this particular person for many of the things which happen in his life. So Krishna is starting with a very basic fact that if anyone says anything to us, we feel more hurt than we would have if we were slapped or beaten. Because these words keep on lingering in our mind. The injuries which are there physically can be healed with medical treatment over a period of time, but something which injures our heart, that suffering, that is not easily stopped because those insulting words become lodged within the heart, and we keep on always remembering and going back to that particular episode again and again. Oh, my son said such and such thing. My daughter did such and such thing. My mother said such and such thing. My wife said such and such thing. My husband did this thing. My boss said this thing. My junior said this thing. And we keep on remembering it again and again with no end. And what happens is when we remember such unpleasant moments, we're actually wasting our precious time. And the moment we remember those things, automatically our capacity to perform also reduces drastically. So these facts are something which need to be learned by us. And Avanti Brahmana story is actually what is going to make us understand it in detail. The mind alone is the cause because it is the mind that makes the spirit soul wander in the cycle of material life. Manah param karanama mananti. This is what you have learned in last week. So, in this world, it is definitely not possible to live in a favorable surrounding throughout our life. So, when such unpleasant situations happen, ideally we should be keeping our mind under control and not be carried away by it. Only when we focus our intelligence on the lotus feet of Lord Krishna can the mind be completely subdued. This is the essence of all practical prescriptions for spiritual advancement. But it is not so easy to be done. And when we try to do it, we also, just like others making us feel offended, somehow or the other in our activities, in our lives, have been acting in such a way that the others also have been felt offended. But then this is something which keeps on happening. So there are two aspects which we learn here. The very first thing is nothing in this world is fixed. Just like you have the five fingers, similarly, your opulences or even your providence will ensure that it keeps on varying. Today, you may have the whole world at your feet. You may be the boss of everything, but it will not take providence a second to make you simply be on the road again. So, even if we have everything, we should not feel egoistic. And even if we don't have anything, we should not feel afraid or lost. Because finally, everything belongs to Krishna. So, there is no way that we should be feeling insulted. So, Prabhuji, what is an insult? Now, let us understand it from aparad aspect. So, aparad means ideally withdrawing from worship. So, in other words, insulting the devotees distances us from devotional service, from the worship of Sri Radha, through which all worship and service to Krishna takes place. So, that is one part. Second part, aparad also means withdrawal from love, because aparad can arise only where there is not enough love. It grows out of envy. So, criticism with bad motives based on a lack of love and respect is the root of aparad. When we have even little love and respect for a person, we are more likely to offend him. In fact, guaranteed to offend him. And if we do not show love, then the reaction will be that we ourselves will lose it. Conversely, where there is love, there will be no insults. If we love someone, we show it through service, appreciation, respect, intimate exchange, not through insults. And that is something which we have to understand in our day to day lives. Because we fail on this basic aspect, it results in tremendous torment for everyone. So, you are seeing the background of this Brahmana who had almost everything because of his good deeds. The result of the good deeds was he got a lot of opulence. But then he was miserly. He thought, let me save for the future. But practically, no one knows what is there in the future. So, because of his such miserly behavior, not spending, not giving to his relatives, to his children, to his wife, everyone was hurt. And at the same time, the demigods were also hurt. So, as soon as the fruits of his previous pious activities were fulfilled, the deities withdrew everything. So, they created scenarios whereby government took something, thieves stole something, relatives took away something, and the result was he had absolutely nothing left with him now. And so, because of his hard heartedness and miserliness, no one wanted to be with him. And when his property was completely lost, he became ignored by his family members. And it is at that time that he began to feel anxiety. But it is said, जब चिड़िया चुग गई खेत, अब पछताए होत क्या जब चिड़िया चुग गई खेत. What is the value of now repenting when the bird has already come and taken away all the food grains? That's what this Hindi saying means. So now, when he had no chance, nothing, even if he repents, it was not useful. So ideally, his very beginning, materialistic mentality was wrong, because a Brahmana is not supposed to have any kind of a materialistic mentality at all. He is supposed to be involved only in Athato Brahma Jigyasa and training people to know who is Brahman, what is the absolute truth. But because he did not do that, that was another fault on his side. The humble devotees, following the indications of the Vedic scriptures, refer to themselves as unfortunate and unable to understand the laws of God. They never declare themselves to be Brahmanas. Those who are wise know that ideally such humble devotees are actual Brahmanas, whose hearts are cleansed by the pure mode of goodness. And that is why in our system, after your Harinam Diksha, a substantial time period is given before you get the Brahman Diksha, wherein you can actually come to this level of complete humility. So that is how we have to live, and not what this Brahmana had actually done. Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur tells that we should not merely proclaim ourselves to be Brahmana, but actually understand our original identity as a servant of the Lord. And the moment we understand we are the servant of the Lord, the next step is to be engaged in the service of the Lord. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.